excited because we've got the ultra runner girl, Stephanie Case, back on the Tough Girl Podcast Extra. Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be chatting again.
I know. I was looking through. I actually re-listened to the first podcast that we did way back. We would have recorded it in December 2016, and it got released in January 2017. So I definitely, obviously, can't wait to catch up with what you've been up to. But first of all, I know where are you based at the moment?
I am in Kabul, Afghanistan.
How are things going over in Afghanistan? When did you move back over there?
So I've been back here for just over a year. I had about 2 years working in Geneva. That was after I'd left the field, so to speak. I'd been working in Gaza before that. And, during the time I was in Geneva, I bought a place in Chamonix, and I was really living the exact life I'd always wanted. But, with my line of work, you can't really predict what's going to come up. And an opportunity came to come back to Afghanistan, and it's a country that I deeply love. I was here in 2012, and then I started my charity here in 2014. So I've come here on vacation when I was based in Gaza. I was really excited to come back. It was also quite daunting because I was leaving paradise, really. But the nice thing is I've got a home set up in Chamonix, so I know I will have that to go back to.
I think that's the first time I've heard somebody say on the podcast that they go on vacation to Afghanistan. But but it's true. At the end of the day, you've been there before. You started your charity, free to run there, and it's obviously got a very, very special place in your heart. So I'm gonna come back to Afghanistan a little bit later because I want to talk about your training and your race and everything else. But let's go back to 2017 because you had a very interesting start to the year. Tell everybody what sort of happened New Year 2017.
Yeah, so I really just wanted to start the year off in the mountains, and I found this snowshoe hike. It was going to be pretty tame, just up to one of the refuges on the Italian side, and it's Refugio Bonatti, which is a refuge I've been dozens of times on training during races. It's on the UTMB course, and also it used to be on the Tour de Géants course as well. And I just thought it would be a really cool place to spend New Year's Eve. So I signed up for this little trek by myself, and it was just me and a bunch of Italians hanging out in the mountains. I actually even went to bed before midnight. I was so excited to get up early and start 2017 off the right way. So I got up before sunrise, and I'd asked one of the guides the night before if the trail or the path back to Courmayeur, the main Italian city in the valley, in that area, if the trail was clear. And they said, yes, it's, you might need, some extra footwear, but you've got your snowshoes, so, you should be fine. And so I started out in the morning, just before sunrise, and started off on this path. It's at about 2,000 meters altitude. And there were ski tracks and snowshoe tracks ahead of me that I could follow for a good few kilometers. And I knew the trail really well. But then I got to a section where there was a river. And normally there's a bridge, but it had been taken out in the winter, which I wasn't expecting. And I didn't really think anything of it, but what it meant was that I couldn't really figure out where the trail picked up on the other side. And in retrospect, I should have just kind of abandoned the plan and turned around at that point. But I didn't really see a big problem with it. So I just kind of crossed the river, continued on my way, and continued snowshoeing. And I was having a great time. And I was taking photos, and my phone died a couple times in the cold. Just the cold zapped the iPhone batteries. And so I'd put the phone just kind of tucked in my sports bra to try to warm it up. I really wanted to get more photos. And then I got to a bit of a steep section, and again, didn't really think anything of it. And I tried to kind of go across on my snowshoes, and I slipped a little bit. And, I was sliding down the slope. And then when I tried to stop myself, I couldn't stop. And then the slope really started to get a lot more steep. And that's when I really started to realize I was actually in a bit of trouble. And then I started rolling, tumbling, head over feet. And then I started to panic. Because when you're when you're just tumbling down a mountain and you don't actually know what's coming, and you're by yourself, it's pretty, it's pretty rattling. And felt like I was tumbling down the mountain for ever. It probably wasn't that long, but I looked at my Strava later and it was about 40 meters, which is like, I think it's equivalent of about 11 stories. And I didn't stop until I hit a tree. And it was, at the beginning, it was just a bit of a relief because, I hadn't fallen off a cliff. I hadn't, hit my head, and I just kind of hit the tree right on my chest. And I thought, okay, at least I've stopped. But then I tried to breathe in, and I really was having a lot of trouble breathing. And everything started to go black. And I just thought, oh, shit. So I hit the tree on my right side, but luckily my phone was on my left side. And of course I was myself. So I knew I needed to get to a place where I could try to call for help. But I was really quite stuck on the tree. So I had to push off the tree a little bit and slide down maybe another 10 meters to where the ground leveled out. And then I kind of just rolled over onto my left side and pulled up my phone, and I kind of went through all the options of what I could do. I thought, okay, can I just walk down to the valley and get help there? And then I realized, no, I was actually pretty hurt. Can I call for help? No, I was having trouble breathing. And I realized the only way that I was going to get out of there was if my phone turned on. And knowing that it had already died a couple of times in the cold, it was a pretty sobering moment, because in those 30 seconds or a minute or however long it was in between, well, it was probably a couple minutes in between hitting the tree and then pulling up my phone, I realized if my phone didn't turn on, then that would be it. That would be the last thing I would see. But luckily, my phone turned on, and I got my GPS coordinates and called my Italian friends who own a Hotel Crew in Courmayeur, and they gave my coordinates to the helicopter. And I waited about 30 minutes before the helicopter came. Which was a really long 30 minutes. And then it took them another 10 minutes to find me. So it was pretty harrowing. I mean, in the end, I had broken 6 ribs, punctured my lung, and had a grade 3 liver laceration, which is a pretty serious liver laceration. So I had lost about 40% of my blood volume to internal bleeding. And had hypothermia. So it wasn't the best way to start off the year.
And it all started so well as well. Heading out to the mountains, getting up early, getting up before the sunrise, having some beautiful time to think and to plan, and not necessarily for New Year's resolutions, but just, what do I want to achieve this year? Reflect back on the year, the year previously, and just, have that quiet reflective time, which I think is incredibly powerful. And then what a shock. I mean, it's something, especially when it comes out of the blue, that you're not really expecting it. Are you okay talking about it as well? Because I did read your blog post, and it's pretty harrowing as well. Sort of what you went through on the side of the mountain. Yeah,
I'm absolutely fine talking about it now. It is. Even when I talk about it, I think, God, did this actually really happen? It took me a few months after it happened to really recover mentally from it, more than physically, actually. It really changed my perspective on pretty much everything. It was quite ironic. I had spent 4 or 5 years in areas of active conflict, and that was 2017 was supposed to be my first full year out of a war zone in quite a while. And that's when I got myself almost, irreparably injured. But yeah, no, I'm fine talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, especially like the knock to your confidence, because you do go out, you run these incredible races, and you do them solo a lot of the time, and you're just out there smashing it and living life to the fullest. How did you get that confidence back? Or, I mean, what was the first run like after you'd recovered, or getting back outside again on your feet?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing that I had to get over was just that feeling of being intensely alone. I mean, I've got a great family, I've got great friends, I've got great colleagues. And so I generally feel supported no matter where I am. But in that moment, I was entirely alone and no one was going to be able to help me. And that's a very hard concept to actually feel and internalize. So yeah, when I was in the hospital, I was in intensive care for a few days, and then I was moved to the surgical ward. And running is so intrinsic to who I am, and that's why it was just so intensely. How do I describe it? It was so intensely important for me to get back to running as soon as I could, and so. I was like signing up to races and accepting race invitations from my hospital bed, whereas the doctors were telling me, I wouldn't be able to run all year. And so I signed myself out of the hospital early so I could get back to Switzerland to see my doctors who kind of knew my mentality. And they got me running again 3.5 weeks after my accident, which is crazy. But the liver heals really quickly. I was able to, when I was in the hospital, I had a tube in my side, kind of draining all the crap from my lungs. And, if you can withstand the pain from the broken ribs and you don't fall again, then actually the physical exercise helps you heal more quickly. So yeah, I was out running again, that same month. It was, I think, maybe January 27th. That's in my head as the day. And it was pretty terrifying just to even go for my first walk because I was still quite fragile. One, wrong move, or if someone just bumped into me on the street, then, there was a chance my liver could start bleeding again. So I was pretty nervous, but I knew I had to get back out running as soon as I could. Otherwise, it was going to become a thing that I wouldn't be able to try. But my first real trail run, I started off just running on the streets and then running in the valleys. But my first real trail run where I got back to the mountains, I went out with my friend, my Swiss friend, and we went out, and there was one point where I just froze. It wasn't on a scary part. It wasn't particularly steep, but I just froze and I just burst into tears. And it's just something you have to work through. I think I was also a bit affected by, comments on social media. There were some people who, just said, oh, this is just another story of some person who doesn't have any respect for the mountains. And, what is she doing going off alone? And that was really hard to hear as well, because the accident was my fault entirely. And, I know now there are, better comms devices I can bring out with me. But the idea of never being able to go running alone in the mountains it's just not something I'd ever be able to do. There aren't many people who want to go out for, an 8-hour run every day. And I think it was just a reminder to me that, what we do, especially for me, I don't see trail running as being dangerous, but, we have to recognize that there are inherent risks with everything that we do. And, it's easy for us to all say, yeah, but, this person or this story is different from me because of X, Y, Z. But it's not. It could happen to anyone. And that's just part of the risk we take because we love the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because one of the blog posts I read on your website, I'm loving your website as well. Your website blog post, ultrarunnergirl.com. yeah, .com. I was going to say .co.uk, but it's not. It's .com. Is the one about is listening to your body. Because I find this really, really interesting because it's things that I say it all the time. Listen to your body. Listen to what your body's saying. And you've actually got like a really interesting viewpoint on this, and I totally get where you're coming from. So, do you just want to explain a little bit more about why you decided not to listen to your body in the right way? Like,
yeah, that blog post was also very controversial. People either loved it or hated it, which I can understand. But it was after the accident, and again, all of these Italian doctors were telling me, no running for the year. You're crazy. You've just been through like a near fatal accident. You need to let your body recover. And friends and family members and people who really cared about me, they saw this intense desire in me to push things and get back to running, and they just said, why don't you just listen to your body and take a break and allow yourself to heal. And I know where that comes from, and it just wasn't something that was resonating with me. And it's because healing for me and recovery isn't just about physical recovery, it's about mental recovery. And if I didn't get back out running, if I listened to how tired my body was, if I listened to, all of these voices that reminded me that I was in this almost tragic accident, then I would have just laid on the couch and never gotten up again. It was 7 weeks before I could even, lie down flat and have a proper sleep. I was just exhausted. I was on pain meds. For me in order to recover mentally and get me back, I needed to push those thoughts aside, and I needed to start to think, okay, yeah, my ribs really hurt. If I think about the fact that it's because they're broken, then I'm going to just wrap myself in bubble wrap and sit inside. But if I just think about it like it's a muscle pain, which we all get, then it's not as scary. And, my doctor told me that, I was safe to go running, so I'm going to go running. And that's the difference. I'm not telling people to ignore their bodies or do things that are, medically bad for themselves. Not at all. But for me, under the supervision of doctors who gave me the parameters within which I could operate, that I knew that was safe, it was really important for me to not listen that pain and not hold on to the pain that I had, because it was traumatic, and that was essential for me to overcome trauma of the accident.
Yeah. And I think, the interesting thing is that everybody is different. Everybody's got different backgrounds, different experiences. You've been an ultra runner for 10 years plus. Your mindset is different. Your mentality is different. Your mental resilience is completely different because of the experiences and the races that you've been through and what you've previously put your body through. So you do know what your body can take and what it can't take. And also, connecting with doctors who know you holistically, not just the injury and not sort of being too safe. Obviously, by the way, everybody listening, this is not medical advice. We are not doctors. No.
Thank you.
But I think it is powerful because sometimes in certain situations, especially when your mind's saying, no, let's stay in bed, or let's not go for that run, or let's not do that. It's easy to listen to your mind stroke body in those instances. But I think it's incredibly powerful what you did and also mentally to get back out there. You planned, 2017, it was your year away from conflict zones, and you're going to have this, incredible year of running all these races. I think you had like multiple ultra races booked in almost like every single month. How long did it take before you sort of got back out into your running schedule again, or got back to, and I hate using the word, but back to normal, or back to feeling like you?
Yeah. I didn't actually change my race schedule at all for the year.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I was very lucky, but I was very lucky because I survived. But I was also very lucky because I didn't have a scratch on me from the outside, and I had no broken legs. If I had injured I don't know, my kidneys, it would have been, I think, a lot worse. But the lung reinflated, the the liver healed, and the ribs, you can deal with. So my first race was April, um, and because I had such a desire to get back to running, and I was reminded yet again of the privilege it is to be able to move on two legs. My training was through the roof. I mean, I still don't have that level of volume that I had when I came back from my accident. So 2017 is still the best racing year I've had, which is crazy. But yeah, it just I came back strong, and yeah, I think mentally it took probably 3 months before I started to feel quote unquote normal. But physically, I was pushing things from the end of January onwards.
I mean, I think the thing with you as well, it's having that purpose, having that drive, knowing what you want to achieve and getting out there. I mean, when I listen back to the previous podcast, I mean, one of the stories that still stands out for me is when you're on I'm probably going to butcher the name, but the Tour des Géants?
Tour de Géants.
Tour des Géants. And I want to speak French as well. I'm so bad at it. 330 kilometers, 2,400 meters of ascent, and I still remember when you needed
24,000.
24,000.
Yeah,
sorry, 24,000. Yeah, 24,000. And I remember the story of you trying to get calories in, and you just grabbed a bottle of olive oil, and we're just sort of like necking it. But you headed back out in September to do the race again. How did the race go?
In 2017?
Yeah, well, I know you've done it in 2018 as well, so maybe pick which race. Pick which race.
Yeah, I've done it 4 times. I have a really close relationship with this race. In 2015, it was cut short because of the weather. So 2016 was the first year I got to run the full thing, and I just had a brilliant year and came in second female and 14th overall. But I came back in 2017 thinking, okay, well, I've had the best racing year I've ever had. My training has been better because the previous year I'd been training while living in Gaza. And I was like, I've had access to the mountains. I should be able to do even better this year. Maybe not better on placing, but, maybe not suffer as much. And it's a lot more meaning to the race in 2017 because I'd had an accident in the same valley where Tour de Géants happened. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I just blew up. I didn't get my electrolytes right, and my kidneys were just screwed, and I gained probably about 20 pounds of water weight. I mean, I was just enormous. And so I was kind of waddling around the course and just really struggling mentally about, how to stay in the race. And when you've done well in a race before and you come back with expectations, I think when I really have a hard time. I do best when I go into a race thinking, hey, I'm just going to finish. And so I really struggled, why am I doing this? Why am I putting my body through this? Out of everything I've been through this year, should I even keep going? Is there any point? And I think it was at around maybe the 270K mark. My crew, Kate and Fergus, they said to me, look, you've got to find the reason that you came here. Because without a reason, you're not going to be able to get to the end. And and I thought about all of the other competitors who were out there, and everyone suffers. You can't not suffer in a 330K race. And they were all continuing, and they would be continuing longer than I would because, I was still up near the front of the pack. And there was just really no logical reason for me to drop out other than the fact that I was suffering. But it wasn't anything that was going to, that I thought at the time that was serious. And it was just pain. And so I just had to reset, my mindset, and I kept going. I had a bit of a breakdown about 20, 30K from the end. my body was just a mess. And when the doctors saw what state I was in, they tried to pull me from the race. But the other Italians around me helped convince the doctor I should be allowed to keep going. And and I just kind of rolled to the finish. And I still finished in fourth, which was crazy because it was almost 10 hours slower than the year before. I came back the next year because I wanted to have another good experience on the race. And so I went back last year and came in fourth again, but with the same, almost exact same time, within 2 minutes of when I finished in 2016. And it was just a brilliant, brilliant experience.
One of the things you said was about resetting my mindset. And I think that's incredibly powerful because sometimes you can get yourself in not a fluster, but you can be out there and you can go on this like negative spiral and it can be difficult to pull yourself out, to know your reason why you're doing it again. How do you reset your mindset when you know it needs to be adjusted? Is there a tip or a trick or something that helps you to make that switch?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a few things. When it has to do with pain, this is where it's important to listen to your body. It's important to know what is pain that's potentially damaging your body and what's just pain. Because you're going to feel pain in an ultra, and, it's through experience that you learn to distinguish which one is which. And it was actually my mom who told me, to just reset my pain threshold. It was during Tour de Géants last year, maybe coming up to the 300K mark. And my feet were just in so much pain. I didn't have blisters, but it was just the pounding on the soles of your feet. It was like, my feet had just been whipped for, 4 days straight. And I was talking to my mom on the phone as I was running, and she said, well, honey, you're just going to have to, reset your pain threshold. This is your new normal. And it just sounded very simple. And so I thought, okay, this is my new normal. And as soon as you stop focusing on it, and you realize that it's not something that's going to harm you, it's not something to be scared about, it's just temporary pain, that's it, then it's a lot easier to mentally deal with. And then the other thing is just, the classic rule to go by in ultras is that when you get into a mental low, you're going to come out of it. It's just a matter of time. And as long as you can just keep putting one foot in front of the other, that's all you need to do.
Yeah. Mums are the best, aren't they? A quick phone call with your mum. Look, sweetie, this is your new normal, and you're like, okay, yeah, let's reset the pain threshold and carry on, and you will come out of it. I'm pleased you went back in September 2018 to do it again, because I know that race does hold you have a particular love for that race. So I'm glad you've had another really positive experience with it. So there's a couple more races I wanted to talk to you about. One is Western States, the endurance run for the 100 miles, and then I'd love to talk to you about the Berkeley Marathon as well. So let's talk about Western States endurance run, 100 miles. Why this race? Why this challenge?
Well, it was, I think, the first 100 miler I'd heard about, because it's, the oldest, most historic 100 miler. It's how 100 mile races started. There's a very famous story about how it started off as a horse race, and 1 year, Gordon Ainsley, his horse was lame, and he ended up running it on foot. I hope I'm getting the story right, but this is how I remember it in my head anyway. And that's how the 100 mile race was born. So he's a legend. He's kind of seen as birthing this crazy challenge. And it's really hard to get into. You have to qualify, and then there's the lottery, and it's extremely popular. So it can take years and years and years to get in. I was quite lucky. There was a contest with Strava, and I ended up winning the Strava spot. So this was my chance to go run Western States. And honestly, I went into it not arrogant, but just because I lived in the Alps. I thought, it's a downhill course. It's not really going to be that hilly. It's practically flat. but there are a few more hills than I might have guessed. I had a really challenging time with the race just because of the conditions. You start off in snow and then it got really hot. And I was also on antibiotics for the race, which didn't really help. So I was throwing up, or at least nauseous, starting at around 30 miles, which makes for a pretty tough 70-mile finish.
What was it like? What was it like crossing the finish line?
Oh, I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, you run basically, the finish line is along a track at a high school in Auburn, in California, and the lights are there. I've watched the finish line, on this track live so many years before, and suddenly I was on it. But it was quite a exciting finish because you get a silver buckle if you're able to do Western States in under 24 hours, and I kind of went in there, secretly with a goal of doing it under 22, and maybe even a little bit better. And because I'd had such a tough time throwing up and what have you, at some point I realized that my B goal of getting under 24 hours was really in jeopardy, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it. So I kind of gave up at some point in the race. And then as it got closer to the finish, I realized if I really pushed it, I could potentially still get in under 24 hours. So, I had to stop eating entirely because anytime I tried, I would throw up, and just kind of go off of, I was sucking on hard candies and water, and just really, really pushed it. And then, my crew met me, at the top of the final climb, and ran with me towards the high school. And I ended up coming in, I think it was like 90 seconds before the 24-hour mark, which was just so cool. So I was the last silver buckler.
Oh, congratulations. I was going to say, there's some cracking photos on your blog of you vomiting.
Yeah, photographers loved it. I have a really good friend, Andy Mangold, who is a brilliant photographer. I've met him in races. I think like a decade ago. And I'd come into, I think it was Forest Hill, which is maybe around over halfway. My memory's not so good, maybe 60 miles. And I don't know why, but I chugged a glass of Coca-Cola, and then I saw a shot of pickle juice. It's just supposed to help with cramps. And I decided to do a shot of pickle juice. And then I stole a sandwich off of one of my crew members, and that was like her dinner. And then I just threw it all up. So that was a star moment.
Oh, it's brilliant. I love what you consume during races, from the olive oil to the pickle juice to just stealing sandwiches off tables, which is fantastic. It's an incredible race to do. I've two women that I've spoken to, you may have heard of them, Nikki Kimball and Anne Trassen, who are both legends in the 100. I've forgotten the name of the race now. The 100. Western States 100, and so they're both just phenomenal women. So I'm so pleased that you've had that experience of doing them.
Yeah, and Trayson is she's a legend. I mean,
did she run it? Did she run it with you this year? Was she running? No, she stopped. I can't remember. I don't know if she stopped running or not, but I think she's done it 14 or 15 times or something. Just a huge amount of times. I think she's coaching people now, but she's really an inspiration. Yeah, totally badass. We can listen to her on the Tough Girl podcast. Woo! and then in 2018, you did another. You've done this phenomenal race, the Berkeley Marathon, which isn't a marathon. It's slightly more than a marathon, or a lot more than a marathon. It's also a hugely interesting, complex, crazy, out there race where people, I don't think they've had any finishers for there's been no female finishers, and I think only a couple of men have ever finished it. Do you just want to
Yeah, there's been 15 in the last, I think, 33 years now. There's been 15 finishers, all male. But for the last 2 years, there have been no finishers the last 2 years.
Yeah, the odds are not in your favour when you attempt a race like this. I know there's a really weird entry process. So how did you get invited to this race? Did you have to sort of enter it, or were they trying to get more female runners involved?
Yeah, I mean the entry process is
Do you have to write an essay?
It used to be a closely held secret, but more and more people know about it now because the race has gained in popularity, particularly after the Netflix documentary a few years ago. I first heard about the race actually in 2008, 2009. It was the year, I can't remember which year, but it was the year of my first 100 miler when I did the Vermont 100. And one of the other competitors was telling me about, this crazy race in Tennessee where, it's a secret how to enter. You don't even know what time the race is going to start. And there's no marked course. There's no trail you follow. And you're basically bushwhacking with a map and a compass through the forest, trying to find books that are hidden, in trees, under rocks. That you have to tear out a page in the book that has your bib number in order to prove you've been on the proper course that isn't marked. And, at that time, I thought it sounded like hell. I mean, I was just starting ultra running, and I was happy to be able to follow little pink flags around. I did not want to do a race like that at all. But, I've been ultra running, as you say, for over 10 years now. And I know when I enter a race that unless something goes really wrong, I'm going to be able to get to the end. Once you've been Porte de Géants 4 times, I don't really have an interest in doing Tour de Géants faster. I mean, if I do it an hour or two faster, is that important to me? No, it's the experience. So what other experiences out there? What other challenges are there out there for me to try that will push me outside of my comfort zone? Because that's the reason why I got involved in ultra running in the first place. I mean, it just seemed to be this crazy, impossible sport that really pushes you to go beyond your limits and potentially fail. And that's what I find exciting about it. That's why I never 5Ks or 10Ks, because you're going to finish it. I mean, so what if you finish a couple minutes slower? I don't know. It's just not the way my brain is wired. So, I finally got into the Berkeley scene last year, and I was quite privileged because a good friend of mine who I've raced with before, and who's approximately my speed, also got in. He'd been trying for a number of years. And he finally got in, and I happened to get in the same year. And so that was pretty special because we just made a plan to stick together for the race. And that takes a lot of the stress off, because really this is a race where you can just get lost in the woods for hours and hours and hours, and you just have to find your way back. And if you're not comfortable with navigating, then you can really be screwed.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is about failure, because as you said, you've been running for 10 plus years. If you enter races, you're going to finish them no matter what. You've just built up that mental resilience, that mental focus, determination. You will get to that finish line, and so it is about the experience, but you're also in your comfort zone. And yes, it is challenging, but it's not challenging you anymore. Do you know what I mean? I'm not obviously taking anything away from what you've done. It's just it's almost like you can go out and smash 330 kilometers and 24,000 of elevation.
Well, not smash,
but
you crawl to the end.
But I think what's interesting about this race is the failure aspect, because failure is something that I know happens to me all the time. I just don't. I don't like failing. It doesn't stop me from doing stuff, but I know that there are a lot of women who don't want to fail, who don't do stuff because they're scared of that failure.
Yeah.
How do you approach failure? Or what does failure mean to you?
I mean, I think failure is pretty special because it means that you have gone as far as you can go and you've gone beyond yourself. And, how many times do we get to say that we've done that? If you go into a race and you're going to finish and then you finish, it's an accomplishment, but you haven't surprised yourself at all. And so when you enter a race that you're pretty much going to fail, there's that little hope that you might succeed. I find that so exciting and so intriguing. And if you fail, it just means there's something else you need to learn. And I think the other aspect of the Berkeley that really attracts me is the fact that so much is out of your control. And that's what I've always loved about ultra running, as opposed to road racing or, you don't have control over the weather. You don't have control over, all sorts of variables. But still, in an ultra running race, even though you don't know how your stomach's going to react, you don't know if you're going to get a thunderstorm, what have you. There are still certain parameters set that you can know pretty much what's going to happen. In Berkeley, you don't know what time it's going to start. You don't know really what course changes there are going to be. You don't know where you're going to wind up on the course because you will inevitably get lost at some point. And I like that because it throws us off our game and it forces us to think and react and just let go of any preconceptions and any ideas we have of how we're going to do. And that it's quite freeing, actually, to go into a race where anything could happen and you're probably going to fail. I find that quite freeing.
What do you think you learned from doing the race or having that experience?
I think the first time I did it, it was just about surviving and not embarrassing myself because I didn't know how to navigate before I came. I bought my compass and was practicing in the halls in my office. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But I learned this time that I can navigate and it was great to be able to run the first year with my friend. I can do it by myself. And even though I failed, it gave me so much confidence about what I can do or what I might be able to do next time. And it was also a good reminder that I'm fallible. This year I quit. Last year I waited until I was timed out, but I made sure to finish my loop, all of the book pages, and I made sure not to quit. This year I got so cold, and it was the kind of cold you just can't talk yourself through. And I quit, and I said I would never quit early in that race, and I did. And so I think that was actually pretty helpful for me because it shows that the things that I could control, I didn't do a good job of because I was so worried about the things that I couldn't control. So yeah, I'm excited to go back. I don't know when. I don't know if I'd be let in again. I mean, it's a real privilege to get a spot because so many people want to get in this race. But yeah, I was devastated, of course, when I dropped out for a good few hours, and then when I got some perspective, I just really treasured that experience.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, massive well done. My next question is going to be would you do the race again? Would you want to do it again, or do you need a little break from it? Or
well, last year I said, look, it's right before I flew back to Afghanistan. I flew from Tennessee to Kabul, and I said, I don't want to do this race again until I'm able to train properly. And knowing that I was going to spend the year in Afghanistan, I was like, no, I'm not going to come back next year. But I did. I came back this year because when it was time to sign up, I just couldn't not sign up. So I don't know if I'll apply for next year. Right now, I still say the same thing. I'd like to wait until I can train properly. But who knows? And who knows if I would get that in again? I mean,
I think you get back in again. I think you'd get back in again. So you are in Afghanistan at the moment. How are you training? Because you know what, we, especially in the UK, it's very easy to make excuses not to train because of the weather, or you don't want to go outside, or it's cold, or it's miserable. And in Afghanistan, I can't imagine the number of excuses that there must be not to be able to train. But you don't listen to any of those excuses, and you do train. How do you train out there?
So I'm inside an armed compound, and I'm not allowed to go outside the compound walls except in an armored vehicle. So all of my training has to be done just inside the compound, either on a treadmill or just running loops or up and down the streets and walkways inside the compound. And the longest stretch of straight road is about 550 meters, so like half a kilometer. So I try to get creative. I've got a tire that I can pull around, but I haven't been using it a lot lately. I've just been doing a lot of treadmill. I'll download movies, a lot of reality TV, and I'll just go on the treadmill for hours. Or I'll run around the compound at night, which is quite nice. Because in the dark you can kind of pretend you're in a different place if all you see is the spot from your head torch. And I find little places in the compound where I can go behind apartment buildings where there's dirt, so I can pretend it's a trail. It's pretty boring. So I really have to keep in mind why I'm doing this. Sorry, you can probably hear that noise. It's the aircraft, the military aircraft above. So I have to keep in mind why, what I'm working towards, but it can get really difficult, especially with the stress from my work. And sometimes I'm, working 14-hour days. So I've done some runs, at midnight when work is done, but it's not the best training environment.
Yeah. Are you training for another race at the moment?
But I will be racing in the Laboredo Ultra Trail at the end of June in the Dolomites. Not to compete necessarily. I just need to finish to get a Western State qualifier. I can keep applying to get back in the lottery. And then I've got a spot in Ronda del Sims, which is a very, very tough 100-miler with 13,500 meters climb in Andorra. And that is a qualifier for Hard Rock. And I'm in Tour de Géants again this year. The organizers were really kind to offer me a spot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it because of work. I can only get out 6 weeks from Afghanistan, and it doesn't fall on my 6 weeks. But we'll have to see how the year pans out.
Love it. Right, we're going to go and do some quick fire questions. So your answers don't necessarily have to be quick fire answers, but these are just sort of going to be shorter type questions. So you might feel a bit random, but I'm just basically being really nosy, and I think everyone else would like to know this as well. What time do you wake up in the morning?
So when I'm here at 6:30, but then on Fridays, the weekends here in Afghanistan are Fridays and Saturdays. So on Fridays, I usually crash and don't wake up until about noon.
What's your morning routine look like?
So I'll get up. I've got a really quick morning routine. I've got short hair, and I don't have a lot of routines. I just go in the shower, put on some clothes, grab a headscarf, and hop into an armored vehicle, and then I'll go to another compound, and I have the same breakfast every morning here. It's a piece of Afghan bread, butter, and boiled eggs and 2 Coke Zeros, which is terrible, I know.
You just answered my next question, was what do you eat for breakfast?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And then on weekends here, usually I'll sleep in, and then I'll go, there's a little cafe inside the compound, I'll grab a piece of cheesecake and then take that to the treadmill, and then and then eat the cheesecake while I'm starting my run.
Love it. What's your favorite piece of kit?
Ooh, that is a good question. Probably my quiver, which is like the little pocket holder for my poles, for my hiking poles. So Solomon has made this quiver that can attach to 5-liter packs, so you can store your poles away when you get to the top of a climb, so that you don't have to carry them when you're running downhill. And I've actually modified my 12-liter Solomon pack so that I can attach the quiver onto that one as well.
What current book are you reading?
I'm reading the biography of Mary Colvin, who was the war reporter, basically, who lost an eye in Sri Lanka, and then she was killed in Syria. So yeah, it's not really an escape from my current work, but it's a pretty interesting book. And they've made there's a movie. It's called A Private War that they've made about her life as well.
Ooh, well, my next question is, what's your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. Well, that one is the most recent one I've seen. There was a movie I used to watch a lot as a kid that was called Shining Through, I think. It was with Melanie Griffiths and Michael Douglas, maybe. And it was like a World War II movie where, he was a spy, and she went in to, get information about the Nazis. I don't know. It was kind of like a love story and war and spying. So it kind of combined everything that I love into one movie. But it had been, back then, this was like maybe late 80s, early 90s. We had taped it from TV, I think, on VCR, and we'd missed the beginning because we started recording late. So it wasn't until I was probably in my 20s that I ever got to see the beginning of the movie, because we got it on iTunes.
What's your worst habit?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I bite my fingernails. I've been biting them since I was 3 years old. Probably ever since I grew fingernails, probably. And then Diet Coke or Coke Zero. I have like 6 of them a day. It's bad. I know. It's bad. It's bad.
Oh, that's so bad. Oh my goodness.
But when you live in a war zone, it is not the time to work on, getting rid of your vices. You just embrace them.
Absolutely. Favorite food in normal life and favorite food like while running on trails. Okay. Yeah.
Favorite food in normal life. I love sushi, but my favorite dish is this Chiopino dish that my mom makes. And it was always kind of my going away or coming home meal, because I was always going off to weird places, and it's just what I associate with just family and home and comfort. Favorite food while I'm on the trail. My standard is potato chips. I love, 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 love potato chips. But after that 1 year in Tour de Géants, when I couldn't eat solid foods and I drank the olive oil, I got onto this whipped cream thing, which has kind of stuck with me. So sometimes I'll take shots of whipped cream when I'm racing. And then if I do a race that's longer than probably 36 hours, then I really, really crave McDonald's. And I don't eat red meat. I've been like that since I was a kid. I just think it's, I don't know, I think it's cannibalism. But when I'm racing and I have the chance to have like a crispy McBacon, it just tastes like gold.
Oh my God, amazing. Have you ever sort of necked olive oil again? Do you sort of, do you get into that a little bit more, or have you never done that since?
No, I've never done that since. It was really disgusting. But, the only way you can get 2,000 calories down in one go, I just necked a couple Dixie cups of olive oil. I mean, it was gross. So no, I haven't done that again, but butter for sure. Butter over everything.
I can't remember I can't remember if I was training for anything, but that always stuck in my head, and I thought I'd try it out to see what it tasted like. So I remember trying to do a shot, just one little shot of olive oil, and it was absolutely rank. And I was just like, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how it pulled you down. mantra while running. Do you have any mantras that you like, that you follow, that sort of repeat over in your head?
Oh, I don't know. Let me think. I think it depends. It depends what I'm going through. Like after, I talked with my mom about the pain in my feet. I just kept saying to myself, this is the new normal. This is the new normal. Sometimes I say like, this too shall pass. And then, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What I will do is if a song comes on that I'm just really digging, I will just play it on repeat for hours again. And it could be 4 hours, and I will just skip it and just sing the lyrics of that song. And, yeah.
What was the last song that you had constantly on repeat?
Welcome Home Son by, who is it? I can look it up on my phone. Radical something or other. It's an amazing song that it just has this little tinkling noise at the beginning, and it just matches with like, the sun shining over the mountains and and hope and everything. So I will put that on repeat for hours.
I do actually do the same thing, but like, so when I was on the Appalachian Trail, like one of mine was like chasing cars, but I'm talking
Yeah.
like I would have it on for like 7 or 8 hours, and I still don't think I know all the words, but it was just like, it would just like re-gear me up every time the beginning of the song. I was like, right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. So yeah, really interesting, really interesting. So, two more questions. I think I know the answer to this one anyway. Well, they're sort of combining. How do you relax? Or basically, the question was beach or mountain, but I think you're going to be mountains. And then,
Yeah.
but do you ever go, like, how do you recover? What's your downtime? What do you do to de-stress, to relax, to,
Like after a race or just in general?
just in general? Or maybe if there's something specific you do after a race?
Yeah. I mean, in general, I go running to de-stress, and that's why it's quite hard here, because running itself inside the compound is quite stressful by itself. So I don't really have a good release here. But yeah, being in nature, being outside, going hiking, that's the only way that I can really de-stress. I also really like writing, either just for my blog or whatever. That's kind of a way to allow my brain to process things that are happening, and I also find it really hard to blog when I'm here in Afghanistan, because it's the same times that I find it hard to run are the times when I find it hard to write. And that's when the stress has just gotten so bad that I can't even think about doing the things that would normally de-stress me. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not a beach person. After the Berkeley, I went home to Canada for a few days and just wrote and hung out. I have this lumberjack onesie that I wear, and just played cards with my parents and hung out and kind of shut off a bit from the outside world.
Good, all good. And have you seen the movie with Tina Fey, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot?
Yeah.
Is life like that in Afghanistan?
Unfortunately not. I mean, it actually, that is a pretty good depiction of how it was. I'd say maybe 2008, 2009. When I was here in 2012, it was definitely a lot tamer. And right now it's very tame. I mean, the security situation's gotten so much worse. The threats have really increased, particularly with ISIS or Daesh in the mix. That kind of a life doesn't really exist in Kabul anymore, but it might not be a bad thing.
I want to ask like a really inappropriate question. But I'm going to ask anyway. Have you been designated like a really hot bodyguard?
I wish. If I was with the Canadian Embassy, I would have like 2 close protection officers following me around. They're just like bearded men in checkered shirts, but the UN doesn't give us those. So yeah, I'm kind of out of luck there.
Oh, I feel like we can't end the interview on the fact that you don't have your designated like hot bodyguard. So okay, we've got to end it on a positive. Okay, we'll end it on. What's your favorite quote? Favorite saying? What words do you look to when you're thinking? I either need some inspiration or I need some more get up and oomph and get up and go.
Yeah, there's probably two. The first one isn't really a saying, it's just a thought. And that's, no one ever regrets a run when it's over, And so you think about it, and if you're struggling to get out of bed, no one has ever finished a run and said, "Oh, I really wish I didn't do that." Like it just doesn't happen. And so knowing that I'm going to be happy that I did that later, is what gets me out of bed sometimes. But the thing that kind of comes to mind in terms of how I approach life, really, and I have no idea, I can't remember who said it, but someone famous. It's that, we're not on this planet to see through one another. We're here to see one another through. And I think that's really important to remember, on and off the trail.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. Stephanie Case, you've been an absolute legend. Thank you so much for coming back on the Tough Girl podcast. You are a phenomenal ultrarunner, doing an amazing work over in Afghanistan as a human rights lawyer. You are the founder of Free to Run, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but just quickly, because I think it's really important, although I think it's really important, we didn't have a chance to talk about it, sorry. Do you just want to share quickly about Free to Run?
Yeah, it's an organization I started in 2014 that supports women and girls in areas of conflict through outdoor sports and adventure, helping them to become leaders so that they can be change makers in their communities. We have 3 pillars to our programs. We have the outdoor sports and adventure. Then we have our learning and leadership curriculum, and then a volunteering component. Really, it's the outdoor aspect of it that we think really pushes the barriers and changes the ideas about the roles that women can and should be in society. In places like Afghanistan, women can be invisible and largely confined to the home. And by getting them outside and having other people see them outside, and they're able to reclaim public space, it really does change the way that society thinks of women and girls. And so we've been in Afghanistan since 2014. We have had short-term projects in the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in South Sudan, where I used to be based. But right now we're focusing on Afghanistan and Iraq, which is pretty exciting. And yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook. Our website is www.freetorun.org. And we'd love to have anyone's support. We really rely on the running and outdoor community to get involved and connect up with runners from around the world, because we're all kind of aiming for the same thing, which is really for us to all be free to run.
Love it. I will make sure I include all the links to your website as well as Free to Run in the show notes. But Stephanie, best of luck with all of your races in 2019. I'm so excited again to follow your journey, to follow what you've been up to. I really do enjoy reading your blog posts. So thank you for sharing more of your journey and more of your life on the Tough Girl podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey Tribe, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Stephanie. And if you're brand new to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. I probably should have done that at the start, but I just wanted to get straight into this episode with Stephanie, who is an absolute legend. So as we mentioned, I've actually interviewed Stephanie previously. So we spoke back in December 2016 and the episode aired in January 2017. But if you want to find out more about Stephanie, what life was like growing up in Canada and not being sporty at all, being let down by her first marathon experience, and not having that life-changing moment, and how she went on to go and climb Kilimanjaro and do her first ultra race in Vietnam. She also talks through, the soul crushing low points that she's had to deal with during specific races, as well as the power of the ripple effect and why you can make a difference. But you can learn more about Stephanie Case, ultrarunner, human rights lawyer, and founder of Free to Run, by visiting toughgirlchallenges.com, which is where you can find all of the show notes. And you can also find information about our previous guests. There's over 200 episodes on the Tough Girl podcast now. That's over 200 hours of content for you to listen to while you commute, when you go running, when you're sat on that watt bike, when you're at the gym, when you're out walking, when you're gardening, when you're pottering in the house. Just, continue to listen, continue to be inspired by these incredible women, and take the steps that you need to take in order to achieve your goals. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just do what you need to do. I could not do the podcast without the support of the patrons who are supporting me financially every single month. If you want to give back, if you want to help spread the ripple effect, donate $2 a month, donate $5 a month. If you head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, it'll give you a bit more information about the different tiers and how you can get involved, and what your financial support will actually pay for. Because like anything in life, nothing is free. So thank you again for listening to the Tough Girl Podcast, Tough Girl Podcast Extra. Have an awesome day wherever you are, and I will speak to you soon. New episodes come out every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. All right, lots of love. Bye.